Their ego didn't break when you cried. It didn't break when you begged or explained or stayed longer than you should have. It broke the moment you went silent, because the silence, your silence, is the only thing their entire nervous system was never built to survive. And the exact moment an empath walks away is the moment an avoidant's internal world begins to fracture. Not slowly, not gently, like a foundation that was always hollow finally meeting the weight it was pretending to hold. What they told themselves was, I don't need anyone. What they never admitted was, I need you to need me. That distinction is everything. And safety, the kind they built their entire personality around, was never really theirs. It was borrowed from you every single time. Let's be precise about who we're talking about, because the empath in this dynamic is not a victim. They were never just a partner. They were something far more specific, a source of regulation. While the avoidant was withdrawing, shutting down, disappearing behind their defense wall, you were reading them, not just their words, their silences, the slight shift in tone, the text that came 1 hour too late, the warmth that disappeared mid-conversation without explanation. You felt all of it, processed all of it, and quietly adjusted yourself around all of it. You were, without either of you realizing it, their emotional mirror, the only person in their life actually reflecting back what they were feeling underneath the performance of not feeling anything. And here's a psychological twist that changes everything. The avoider was never truly self-aware. They were your aware. They knew themselves only through the reflection you provided. Their own emotional world, their fear, their longing, their quiet devastation, existed in legible form only because you were there to hold it. The moment you walk away, they don't just lose a partner. They lose the mirror. And for the first time, they're alone in a room with their own shadow, with no one to translate it, soften it, or absorb it for them. That is not a small loss. That is a psychological fracture. And it begins the second your silence starts. What happens inside an avoidant after the empath goes silent moves through 3 very specific psychological stages, and each one cuts deeper than the last. The first is the false relief. The first thing they feel is freedom. Of course it is. This is what their nervous system was built for, distance. The moment you stop pursuing, something in their system exhales. The closeness that always felt threatening is gone. The vulnerability they kept dodging is no longer knocking. They tell themselves, this is what I wanted. Space. Finally, they might even feel a flicker of superiority, proof, they think, that they were right all along, that they didn't need this, that they're fine. This stage is a ghost of genuine peace. It looks like relief. It functions like denial, and it lasts, on average, far less time than they expect. The second is the void. Then something strange begins. The absence starts to have a texture. It isn't neutral anymore. It's cold in a specific way. Because the warmth that used to fill the space wasn't just affection. It was regulation. Your presence, your consistent, unconditional, almost inexhaustible emotional warmth was doing something biological in their system. It was keeping their baseline anxiety at a manageable level without them ever having to acknowledge it. Now that warmth is gone, and the avoidant, who has always prided themselves on not needing anyone, starts to feel something they don't have a name for, a restlessness, a hollowness. They reach for the things that used to distract them, and the distraction doesn't land the same way. They replay conversations, not obsessively at first, just once. Then again, they find themselves noticing your absence in small, embarrassing moments they would never admit to. They are, though they would never use this word, addicted to what you provided, and withdrawal has officially begun. The third is the ego collapse. This is the stage no one talks about, because it isn't dramatic from the outside. It happens quietly, internally, in a moment that often looks like nothing at all. They meet someone new, or they return to their usual patterns, and they realize slowly, then all at once, that it doesn't work. Not because the new person isn't attractive or interesting, but because no one else is reading them. No one else is doing the quiet, invisible labor tracking their emotional undercurrents and adjusting accordingly. No one else is patient enough to wait out the defense wall. No one else will sit in the discomfort of their withdrawal without flinching, without leaving, without making them pay a price for it. And the ego, the one built on "I don't need anyone," meets the one fact it cannot argue with. No one else will do what they did. That is the fracture. That is the moment the architecture collapses. Because the self-sufficiency they were so proud of turns out to have been outsourced the entire time to you. Now let's talk about you. Because this is the part you actually need to hear. Your silence right now is not cruelty. It is not a game. But you need to understand what it is doing inside them. Because understanding is the only thing that will help you stay in it when every instinct you have screams to reach out. Your silence is the most addictive thing they have ever encountered. Here is why. The avoidant nervous system is wired to want what it cannot comfortably have, and to retreat from what gets too close. For the entire relationship, you were close, available, present, warm, and that availability, as much as they claimed to want it, was also what kept triggering their withdrawal. You were too real, too there, too much evidence that vulnerability was being asked of them. But now you are the distance. You have become the thing that is slightly out of reach. And the avoidant nervous system, their nervous system, does not know how to sit inside unresolved distance from someone it has assigned emotional significance to. It was never designed for that. Distance was supposed to be their move, their safety, their exit. Now you're holding it, and it is doing to them exactly what their withdrawal used to do to you. The urge to reach out that you feel right now, they feel it too. But there's this tangled in ego, tangled in the story they've built about themselves. They are fighting it. And every day your silence holds, that fight gets more expensive. The ghost of your warmth gets louder, not quieter. The void gets colder, not more comfortable. So stay in the silence, not to win, not to punish, but because the silence is the first honest thing this dynamic has ever produced. It is the first moment in this entire relationship where the emotional reality is distributed equally, where you are both finally sitting inside the same uncertainty. And that equality, that refusal to absorb more than your share, is the only ground on which anything real could ever be built. Do not reach out. Not yet. Let the silence do what it was always supposed to do. Here is the truth that none of them will say out loud. The avoidant didn't just lose you. They lost regulation. They lost their mirror. They lost the only relationship in which their shadow was seen and held without punishment. They lost the one person who stayed close enough, long enough, and calm enough to make their own emotional world feel survivable. And somewhere in the quiet, in the middle of the night, they didn't expect to be this loud. They are realizing that no amount of fence wall will protect them from what it feels like to lose someone who actually knew them. They are, for perhaps the first time in their life, genuinely afraid of the silence that isn't theirs.